Social media websites like Facebook and Twitter are helping to usher in a new golden age of censorship. Twitter has recently introduced their new Trust and Safety Council, which sounds like 1984's Ministry of Truth, and believe me, that's a disturbingly accurate comparison. It's comprised of the most far left, regressive, authoritarian organizations you can imagine. I won't go through the entire list of them here, but all the usual suspects are part of it, and you can read more on the Trust and Safety website. One of the most prominent members is the Anita Sarkeesian-led Feminist Frequency. Sarkeesian has, of course, previously gone to the United Nations with her friend Zoe Quinn to appeal for censorship of people who call her a liar or tell her she sucks. You know, mundane, ordinary slings and arrows people receive in the public sphere when they tell lies, or in some cases, when someone thinks they suck. Twitter's Trust and Safety Council is concerned with preventing abuse, harassment, and bullying, all noble goals. However, the definitions of what constitutes abuse, harassment, and bullying are so undefined as to be completely vague and incredibly broad. They are literally whatever the likes of Sarkeesian and others deem to be abusive, which in the majority of cases will simply be differing political opinions, disagreement, and criticism. The problem with corporations that drink the regressive Kool-Aid and go full SJW is that they think it's actually possible to stamp out ideas and views through censorship or by punishment and ostracization. When they come out with Orwellian levels of doublespeak like, with hundreds of millions of tweets sent per day, the volume of content on Twitter is massive, which makes it extraordinarily complex to strike the right balance between fighting abuse and speaking truth to power. It requires a multi-layered approach where each of our 320 million users has a part to play, as do the community of experts working for safety and free expression. This strongly suggests that they wish to create a platform with one political view. Anyone who harbors a more conservative perspective is no platformed. These leftist people actually wish to turn Twitter into one giant safe space for people who are triggered by arguments, rational discourse, and dissenting opinions. Newsflash, SJWs, the world is a big bad place filled with people who won't always agree with you. Either learn to deal with that and move on, or run home and bury yourself under your blankets to avoid interacting with another human being ever again. There is already a system by which people can avoid genuine harassment and genuine abuse. It's called the block button, or better yet, the power button on your smartphone or computer. You are never going to get rid of trolls. They're annoying, but I'd rather have trolls than mass blanket censorship that affects innocent people who simply wish to engage in civilized debate and an exchange of differing ideas. They talk about encouraging speaking truth to power, while ironically giving power to people who demand agreement with their politically correct views. They are the ones with the actual power now. They can determine who deserves to speak and who deserves censorship. The people we need to speak truth to power to are the people in Twitter's Trust and Safety Council. Of course, the views of these regressives do not represent the majority of people in society. Most secular and democratic nations are populated by people who subscribe to egalitarianism and believe in the marketplace of ideas. That's why Twitter's share price has dropped like a stone following the recent introduction of censorship across the site. People cannot trust Twitter to accurately reflect reality in their Twitter feeds because it no longer gives everyone a fair hearing. This will open the door to a rival website that people will no doubt flock to. Well done, Twitter. If there's a prize for how to torpedo the popularity of a social network, you've got no competition for it. Twitter and these far left-leaning sanctimonious autocrats are no different to religious Puritans of the past who were also easily offended by any speech that ran counter to their beliefs and doctrine. No one can know what someone else may find offensive. That's the point. Offense is never given. It can only be taken. Either we have freedom of speech, unfiltered and unmoderated, or we have safety from the words of others, i.e. censorship. So what has Twitter's Jack Dorsey given us with this new policy? A new algorithmic Twitter timeline is to be introduced. Already, many prominent libertarian and conservative political commentators and journalists are being shadow banned and blocked entirely. Paul Joseph Watson, Lawrence Southern, Milo Yiannopoulos, Sargon of Akkad, and Mercedes Carrera are just some of the popular outspoken critics of regressive politics who have had their Twitter profiles impacted by this. Even Stephen Fry, with his 12 million followers, had to leave Twitter recently because of a joke he made about a friend of his who wasn't offended by the joke at all. She took it on the chin, but social justice warriors decided to get offended on her behalf, protect her from a friendly jibe, and then spam Fry with abuse. How very tolerant of them. The kind of censorship we've seen enacted on Twitter and Facebook in recent weeks is the kind of behavior we expect to see from the Chinese government. True classical liberals and conservatives are no longer being given a voice at the table of society because regressives think that every leg of the table needs to be destroyed. We live in a time of unrivaled comfort that there's very little left to complain about in society. So regressives become obsessed with their feelings rather than reality and what matters. Any government would be only too happy to collude with these useful idiot regressives and create a climate of censorship. This is because it's a lot easier to push through unpopular agendas when there's no public resistance. The majority of people aren't sexist or racist or homophobic nowadays. While those mindsets still exist, they're thankfully in short supply. But regressives would have us believe that Nazis lurk around every corner and they should remain hyper-vigilant and oversensitive to anyone who doesn't share their views. That's why throughout the last few decades, they've done a fine job in attacking the key pillars that keep society propped up. The family, fathers, promoting third-wave Marxist feminism, criticizing capitalism, focusing on identity politics, and most recently, infantilizing millennials with safe spaces and trigger warnings in universities. The table isn't a table anymore if it no longer has a leg to stand on. Labeling people bigots, haters, thisophobic or thatophobic for simply speaking their minds, or in many cases speaking the truth, is a recipe for disaster. The problem with throwing around these labels all too liberally is that eventually the words lose their meaning. People no longer pay them any attention, and they fail to recognize when genuine bigots emerge and are given positions of power. Freedom of speech is a privilege and liberty that our ancestors fought and died for in the Western world. It seems authoritarians never learn and continuously forget this fact. I have no doubt that one day society will swing back around to valuing free speech above censorship, but who knows how far off that day will be. There's a significant amount of damage that the far left's crusade for censorship can do to society between now and then.